Hi, it's Dre Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Today we discuss income annuities and whether it's a smart choice for retirement without a pension. When it comes to the wealthy retirement system, there's three legs to the system. The first one is your future-proof wealth formula. The second one is your prosperity healthcare blueprint. And the third one is your design your dream life framework. Today we're going to focus in on the future-proof wealth formula. And when you're talking about risk and the challenges of retirement, the number one concern that most people have is, Dre, am I going to run out of money in retirement? And if that is something that is a concern for you, we're going to discuss possibly adding an income annuity into your retirement plan. For most people, you don't have access to a pension. We know that that was something that a lot of retirement plans used to have, and it's a big challenge now for people today. We're trying to figure out how we're living longer, but we're not having as many pensions. And then we have to allocate upwards to 20% of our salary over a long period of time. And then we have to get this investment returns, and we're trying to figure everything out. And there's a lot that goes into knowing whether or not you'll run out of money in retirement. That's why so many people are trying to figure out, how much money do I need to have a comfortable retirement? And while I am someone who generally leans on investments, because I do believe when it comes to actually building wealth, there's three asset classes that we see over and over again generate wealth. And that is going to be investing in the stock market, investing in a business, and investing in real estate. And so when you look at 65% of self-made millionaires have at least three streams of income, I am someone who generally is looking at getting you three streams of income so that we can build the wealth that you need so that you can not only enjoy your retirement and have a great lifestyle and check off a whole bunch of exciting goals and events that you have on your list, but also if you're someone that wants to support a charity or cause that you believe in, where we can have money allocated towards that as well. But there is a situation where it makes sense to say, you know what, let me just go ahead and focus on having the income in my retirement. And I'm not worried about the legacy. I'm not worried about the returns. I just want the peace of mind of knowing that I'm going to have a paycheck for the rest of my life. And we're going to go over a variety of case studies today as far as different ways that you could use an income annuity. So let's start with what an income annuity is and why it's beneficial. So income annuities are different than a variable annuity and an index annuity and all these other annuities that we have. An actual income annuity has been around literally for thousands of years. You've seen it with the Roman Empire. Is the idea that if I work for a period of time, I know that if I allocate a certain amount of money towards my retirement, that I'm going to receive a check for the rest of my life. Now, most people, you had access to a pension maybe like 30 years ago. And when you had access to a pension, that risk was on the employer. They had to allocate the investments in a way that ensures that their pension fund doesn't run out of money. And so the government along the way said, all right, there's a few pension funds that have gone insolvent where they ran out of money. Maybe if we change the laws to require pension funds to have more money inside of them, then we don't have to worry about pension funds running out of money anymore. And one of the issues that ended up happening was a lot of companies said, this is too strict. We're really tying up so much of our money that we'd rather not offer a pension. And then all of a sudden, what the government intended to be a good idea, no surprise there, ended up having this negative consequence that they did not see coming. And so company after company stopped offering pensions to the point that today it's less than 20% of companies offer a pension, and the majority of them are going to be government jobs. So if you're someone who liked the idea of a pension, who liked the idea of having an income for the rest of your life, so you don't have to allocate trades and make sure you're having the right withdrawal strategies and the right investments, and you're keeping up with the stock market and all this other stuff, all you had to do was put money inside of your own pension plan. And that is what an income annuity is. You can have a deferred annuity, which is the idea that I'm not going to use this annuity for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, but I'm going to allocate a percentage of my check inside of this pension. It's deferred. And then when you use it, you annuitize it, is what the fancy term is. And all that means is I lock my annuity, I no longer give up money inside of it, and then I'm going to start receiving my check every single month for the rest of my life. You also could have what's called a single lump sum annuity. Let's say someone who has some sort of a lump sum of money that they get when they retire, and they're sitting there and they're just not sure what to do with this large lump sum of money. You could put a portion of that or all of that, depending on your risk tolerance, inside of your annuity. And then they would take all the money and they would offer you a check for the rest of your life. That check can vary depending on how much money you put in. And in the case studies, we'll go over a few of those examples for you, so that way you can get an idea of what to expect from your annuity. Now, for most people, the amount of money that you need in retirement and the amount of money you have to invest in annuity to get that amount For most people, that doesn't normally add up. So the average person, if they are interested in an annuity, is going to put a percentage of their portfolio inside of an annuity. So for example, John, who is 60 years old without a pension, he uses $100,000 from his 401k to purchase a single premium immediate annuity. And he starts receiving $6,000 every single year in predictable reoccurring income. And then what you do is you would then add that $6,000 a year to whatever their Social Security is and then their other investments. The average Social Security is about $1,800 every single month. So it's about $22,000 a year. So in this particular instance, that means John will have a floor of almost $30,000 that he can expect every single year, which would then leave him needing to cover the rest with his other investment. And I'll put a link to a video where I do discuss what is a comfortable retirement for most people. And on average in America, that is about $50,000 a year. That's what the median is. And so John would then have to come up with the additional $20,000 a year through his other investments to then ensure that he has all the money that he needs to live comfortably in retirement. Now, a strategy that someone could use when it comes to a deferred annuity could be someone like Sarah. She's about 55 years old and she has money that she's allocating towards her annuity. It could either be a large lump sum or it could be money that she puts in from every single check. And her plan is to activate her annuity at 70 years old. That then gives her the peace of mind of knowing, well, in my early years, I'm going to be able to spend more freely. I'm going to take the trips. I'm going to enjoy myself because I know I have this floor already set up once I turn 70 where I can then activate my annuity. And so she has a deferred annuity that allows her to spend her money a little bit earlier. Maybe she could work down her taxable accounts. Maybe she could work down her required minimum distribution accounts. And then she's able to have herself set up to then having her annuity income. And then she can have $1,000 a month, so $12,000 a year to then go with her Social Security. And we know that generally we spend a little bit more early on in retirement because we're focused on having fun and enjoying ourselves. We spend a little bit less around the middle because we're just kind of enjoying our family, kind of relaxing a little bit. And then around the end, we typically spend a little bit more, and that's normally going to be our money allocated towards our healthcare expenses. That is called the spending smile, which typically is what happens to the average retiree. When it comes to some of the challenges of income annuities, because you're sitting there thinking, well, this is great. I don't have to study the stock market. I don't have any risk of losing my money. I just give them the money and they give me income for the rest of my life. What is there not to like? Well, there's a couple of things. First and foremost, you have inflation risk, which, as we mentioned, about every 17 and a half, 20 years, your purchasing power cuts in half, which is a very fancy way of saying that you need twice as much money to live the exact same lifestyle. And so if you're sitting there and you're able to live off of $50,000 a year right now, that means in 20 years, you would need $100,000 a year to live the same lifestyle. I know that my dad, I give the same story all the time, right? My dad talked about walking to the corner store and getting a pack of cookies and a soda, and it was like a nickel. And I can say that that's never happened in my life. I know my mom tells a story about her and granddaddy going to the candy store, and again, you're able to buy a bag of candy for some change. Again, you couldn't do that in my lifetime. But I can tell you in my lifetime that the price of gas, when my parents would get gas, was maybe $1 a gallon. And then I remember when I first started college, it might have been $2 a gallon. And then it got kind of crazy before COVID where it was $4 a gallon, $5 a gallon, even $6 a gallon. And now we're somewhere where it's a little bit lower than $6 a gallon, but it's definitely higher than $2 a gallon. And so you can see that the cost of things goes up. And if your income doesn't go up with it, then that means you're not going to be able to maintain your exact retirement lifestyle. That your annuity, if it's not going up with inflation, means that you're actually going to have to decrease your lifestyle every single year because you can't afford the same things that you could when you first retired. Now, they do give you the opportunity to add things called riders. And in this particular instance, you would add what's called a cost of living adjustment. And all it is we're saying that every single year, whatever the cost of living, whatever index they use, there's a few of them out there, they would increase what your payout would be. And then the cost of that is something that we always have to keep in mind. Annuities have a lot of costs tied to them, depending on how you structure it. But every time you add a rider, whether you add a long-term care rider, a cost of living adjustment rider, or a guaranteed return rider, depending on how your annuity is structured, all these riders have costs associated with them. And if you were to say maybe it was a 0.5% of your investment return went towards the traders, and then 0.25% went to your cost of living adjustment rider, and another 0.25% went to the actuaries, and you can see how these costs can add up to where you can see that 1 to 2% of your overall portfolio is purely being allocated towards the fees. And you don't, obviously, you don't want that because the fees do add up over time. where a 1% fee can literally change your portfolio by $120,000. So you want to be mindful of these fees, but you have to deal with that if you're going to add all these guarantees in. And the third challenge you'll face with an income annuity is you're going to have liquidity issues. And all that means is once you put the money inside of an annuity, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to take the money out, that money is now locked up. Where you give them $100,000 and then they're going to give you $6,000 every single year. In that last example I gave you, well, if next year something was to happen and you needed $20,000, you don't have access to that. You gave them the $100,000. They're just going to give you the $6,000 every single year, which is why for many people, when they have an income annuity, they normally leave a percentage of their money just in cash so that they have that liquidity. Maybe $50,000 is set aside in cash, maybe $20,000, $30,000 is set aside in cash, because you know that you're going to get a check for the rest of your life, but you also know that you have to give them a large lump sum of money, and that money is going to pay out over time, that there's nothing that you really can do to speed it up. I mean, there are some instances where you could have, for example, if I have a terminal illness, where you can have a rider where you're able to access the money. There is some ways to structure your annuity, but again, there's always a cost associated with adding these different bells and whistles inside of your annuity. So we just always want to be mindful of what the overall fees are. But when you're just looking at the simple annuity where you just have an income annuity, I give you a bag of money, you give me a check the rest of my life, and then the risk is on you to invest that in a way that helps you to make more than what you give me. That is what a traditional income annuity is. In the traditional income annuity, that means that you don't have access to your big bag of money anymore. So if you wanted to update your house, if you had a big surgery, you wouldn't be able to access the large lump sum anymore. You'd have to allocate your check in a way that allows you to save up for those large purchases, or you have to set something aside in case of a rainy day. Based off of the pros and cons, you might be sitting there saying, okay, well, Dre, when is an income annuity a good fit? And I would say if you're someone who's leaning on simplicity, then an income annuity, you can't get much simpler than that. You give them the money, they give you the check. If you're someone who really likes the idea of a pension, but you're not offered one at work, well, you can have a personal pension through an income annuity. And it basically works the same way as a pension from your employer. There's a percentage of your money that goes into this pot. And as the pot grows over time, it then eventually gets annuitized, which means I start taking money out of it and I can't put any more money inside of it. And then it's basically a calculation and they tell you how much you can receive every single month. And then we'll go into how you structure the payouts and how that impacts the overall payments that you'll have a little bit later in the video. And the third situation that an income annuity is normally a good idea is if you genuinely feel that you're just going to be living a really long time. So the way an income annuity works is there's actuaries that are trying to estimate how long you're going to live. They pool all the money together in a certain risk class, maybe you're non-smokers and this certain age and your good health and certain vitals. They'll say, okay, these people on average are going to live to 80 years old. So then the payout is based off of that average. Some people will pass earlier, some people will pass later, but if you beat whatever the actuary estimates, you're then going to be receiving more money than you put in. The way an income annuity works as far as the longevity play, if there was some magical pill created today where the average life expectancy went from 78 years old to 108 years old, well, you've already locked in your income annuity based off of the previous life expectancy. And so that means you're going to get 30 more years of payout. Obviously, the only risk is whether or not that insurance company is still going to be around, because if they did that with a bunch of people, they may run out of money. But the assumption is they're not going to go away. That means that you hit the jackpot, that you are going to receive 30 more years of income than any of you expected. And then obviously the risk is on the longevity. So if we don't live as long as we were expecting, then that means the insurance company generally wins unless we have it structured in a way to either receive a refund or whether it goes to our spouse or something like that. And we'll go into that a little bit later. And income annuities are also nice for what I call like nip and tucks. So for example, let's say you and your spouse both have Social Security, but it's uneven, where one spouse is getting $2,000 a month, the other spouse is getting $1,000 a month. You could have an income annuity of $1,000 a month to then match the other spouse with both of them, just as a nip and tuck. You could be someone who says, well, I don't want to take Social Security at 62, but I'm not sure how to keep my money going because I don't want to work either. Well, if you have an income annuity to bridge that, so you have an 8-year income annuity to carry you from 62 to 70, you could then put a certain amount of money towards that. And then when you turn 62, you activate your annuity, and then you don't have to work, but you don't have to take Social Security either. And that's what I call those nip and tucks, where you can use an income annuity for a short amount of time, and then that works with your overall retirement strategy in a way to help you maximize your income in other aspects where your investments are continuing to grow and you don't have to work if you don't want to, where you have the income coming in just to give yourself a little bit of flexibility. When it comes to customizing your income annuity, there's a couple things that are going to be unique to you. We've already gone over a few of them. One of them is going to be the payout. Do you want it to be on a single life? That's going to give you the most money. And that just means it's based off of the annuitant's life. So if it's based off of your life, then that's it. Whatever your life expectancy is, they're going to give you a certain amount of money every single month, the rest of your life, based off of that. And because you're sharing the risk with them, which is like, hey, look, if something happens to you unexpectedly, then that's it, right? You lose. Then they say, we're going to give you the most for that because you're taking on a decent amount of risk. So you might be able to receive $2,000 a month if you had an annuity based on your single life. But if you have a joint life or the lover's choice, what you're saying is, if something happens to me, you would then pay out the entire amount to my spouse as well. Well, in that case, you're not taking as much risk as a single life. So it wouldn't be uncommon for, in that particular example, maybe your annuity drops from $2,000 a month to $1,500 a month, depending on the age of the other person. If the other person is, for example, like a grandchild, then it may drop to $800 a month. But if it's your spouse and then you're kind of close to the same age, then it wouldn't be uncommon for the annuity maybe to be $1,500 a month. So you're giving up $500 a month to have that guarantee that your spouse also receives the income, which then brings up the question, is there a way that we can structure your retirement plan where you can have your annuity set on a single life so you receive the most, but then you also have something set on the side that in case something happens to that person, that we're still okay? And that could be adding a life insurance policy on the annuitant, that particular spouse. And so the way that could work is our spouse takes the single life, so they receive the $2,000 every single month. And then instead, we use that additional money, what would have been $500, right, to then pay a life insurance premium so that if something happens to our spouse, what we're able to do is then we'll have the life insurance policy that will completely cover what we lost with that annuity. And if nothing happens to our spouse, then we receive that additional $500. We didn't have to give that away to the insurance company, but then we also have that life insurance policy. Now, I've seen some where they have it as a whole life insurance policy. I've seen some where they have it as a term life insurance policy. But if you have it as a whole life insurance policy, you're then generating the cash value and you also have the guaranteed insurance payment because it's a whole life policy. And so now you have a lot more flexibility. Where the spouse lives, that's great. We have the additional $500 that we were receiving based on us choosing a single life versus a joint life. But then if something does happen, okay, we have the life insurance policy, and then the payout on life insurance policy more than covers what we lost with that annuity. And the third annuity payout option is called a period certain annuity. And it's just as it sounds, it's a certain period of time that we guarantee you that you're going to receive a payment. So something in between a single life, which is just one person, a joint life, which is two people, this is a period certain. So whether or not the single annuitant has a great long retirement or a short retirement, the insurance company promises to pay for 10 years or 20 years, or normally 10 to 20 years certains. No matter what, someone is going to receive a check for 10 years or 20 years, depending on what you choose. And because of that, again, when we talk about the risk decides how much you receive, you don't have all the risk of a single life. You're not giving a ton of the risk to the insurance company as a joint life, but the insurance company is somewhere in the middle between the two. So normally that monthly payment is going to be somewhere in the middle between the two. So if you're going to receive $2,000 a month on a single life and you're going to receive $1,500 a month on a joint life, on a period certain, you might receive $1,750 a month, right? Let's just say it's kind of right there in the middle because you're sharing a little bit of the risk with them. And when I'm describing risk to people, I often say there are jobs where you're doing almost the same thing, but the person who takes the risk gets the most money. So for example, if I was a doctor, if I worked in the emergency room, I'm probably going to receive a salary. It could be a nice salary. It could be $150,000, $200,000 a year. But if I have my own medical practice, then I could receive $1 million a year, but I could also receive $0 a year. But because I'm willing to take the risk of receiving $0 a year, that gives me the ability to make more money. And it's the same if you were a lawyer. If you were a public defender, you're going to receive a check. You don't have that risk of not having any income, but it's capped. You're going to get paid $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. But if you had your own law firm, again, you have the ability to make $0, but you also have the ability to make millions of dollars. If you're the person who takes the risk, you're the one that gets the reward. You get the extra money. And it comes the same with investments. It comes the same with income annuities and most of the choices that you make. Whoever's taking the risk gets the opportunity to make more money. Now, granted, for example, an income annuity, we know that the risk is with the insurance company. They have to make more than what they promised to pay you. But at the same time, you're capped. You give them $100,000, $500,000, whatever it is, their actuaries come up with all the calculations, and then they tell you how much they're going to pay you per month. Well, then they just have to make more than that. And you'll find a lot of times with these annuities, they're paying you more around 3% of what the return is. So it's not overwhelmingly difficult for the insurance company to make more than you, but the insurance company accepts the fact that yes, once every 10 years, there's a recession, that there's going to be something where they're going to give you that 3% and they're actually going to have lost 10% that year. It's totally going to be possible. But they also know that they have been making 8-10% on average every other year. So that way they can kind of build the money on the side. We also mentioned the idea of customizing your income annuity with inflation protection. And all that is, as we mentioned, is tied to an index. And then whatever your payment is will go up. So if the index goes up 3%, then you're going to receive an additional 3% on whatever your monthly payment would be. And then if the inflation goes up 10%, you're going to receive a 10% increase, whatever your monthly payment would be. This is something that if you are concerned about losing that purchasing power, where you want your annuity for longer than 20 years, where we know it cuts in half, then you want to maintain the exact same lifestyle, then adding the inflation protection is normally going to be a good strategy for you. A third customization strategy is normally going to be called a QLAC, and all that is it's a qualified longevity annuity contract. And what ends up happening is if you're someone that's a little bit concerned about required minimum distributions, where you have a certain amount of money in a pre-tax account, and you don't know whether or not Uncle Sam, when they require you start taking it out, is going to push you into a higher tax bracket, what you can do is you can set aside up to $200,000 or 25% of the money that you have inside of these pre-tax accounts, like your 401k, 403b, or your IRA, and then that can go into a QLAC. And all happens in a QLAC is I'm able to defer a certain amount of my money, and then I'm going to receive that retirement income as an annuity, but I get to defer it out until 85 years old. And so for in this example, you can think of Peter, who's 62, he would use his QLAC to delay his required minimum distributions on a portion of his IRA, allowing his investments to continue growing. Now, he could choose anywhere from 70, 75 up to 85 as far as delaying the payments that you would receive from your QLAC. And just like any deferred annuity, the longer that you wait to start it, the more you're going to receive. The idea is, well, if you give me $100,000 and I invested and I get at least a 3% return on it, well, if I don't have to give you any money for 10 or 15 years, it just seems reasonable that you should expect to receive a larger monthly payment. Now, if you give it to me and you need the money in 5 years, well, I didn't have as much time to do anything with it. So naturally, I'm going to give you a smaller payment. And inside of a QLAC, you still have the same choices. We're able to have it on a single life or a joint life where you can make sure you and your spouse receive the payment. It could be something if you genuinely feel like, hey, I know that we have long life expectancy in my family, so I need this to help pay for my healthcare expenses. You can have it set aside to be able to do that in the future. And so it's just a really nice strategy as far as getting ahead, planning if you're very comfortable knowing certain situations about your family history. It then gives you the option to be able to take advantage of it. And the last thing we'll talk about today when it comes to an income annuity is the tax implications. That's what we all care about, right? Like, I don't want to pay too much in taxes. I don't want to go to jail for not paying enough in taxes. So what can I do to make sure that I'm managing my taxes well? This comes down to whether your annuity is a qualified annuity or whether it's a non-qualified annuity. When I say qualified, think of your pre-tax accounts like a 401k, your 403b, all those qualified plans. It just means that Uncle Sam allows you to defer taxes. They're a qualified plan. They qualify for that exemption. If you have a qualified annuity, then it's the same idea. I have money that's inside of there that I invested pre-tax. And because I invested at pre-tax, you know how pre-tax is treated once you retire. Because Uncle Sam hasn't taxed it yet, he's going to tax your annuity as regular traditional income. So every time you receive an annuity payment, it's going to be taxed at your normal income tax rate. So for example, Mark, who is 65, he has $100,000 from his traditional IRA to buy an income annuity. The income annuity pays him $500 a month. Well, each $500 payment is fully taxable as ordinary income. So if Mark is in the 22% tax bracket, he would owe $110 in federal taxes for each payment, leaving him with $390 in after-tax income. Now, if his annuity is a non-qualified annuity, then that's treated differently because that means you put the money in with after tax dollars, money that was already taxed, put in your bank account, and then you invested it inside of your annuity. So in that case, it's not all taxed as normal income. Only our earnings are taxed at normal income. Everything else is considered a return of payment, right? I paid into it. It's like a return of basis. So Uncle Sam isn't going to tax you to get your money back. You gave $100,000, you received $100,000. Uncle Sam said you've already paid taxes on that money once. You moved it from your left hand to your right hand. I'm not going to tax you again. Now, if you put $100,000 in and the account grows to $150,000, Uncle Sam is going to tax you on 1/3 of every payment because that $50,000, that was earnings and you haven't paid any taxes on the earnings. So in this example, let's use Sarah, who's 65. She buys a non-qualified income annuity for $100,000 with after-tax money. Her monthly payment is going to be that same $500 that we saw for Mark, but we'll say that $400 of each payment represents a return of her initial premium, while $100 is considered earnings. So in that case, Sarah will only pay income tax. Let's assume she's at the same 22% tax bracket. She'll only pay income tax on the $100 that was her growth, and then the 22% of that will be $22, which means that out of the same $500, she would have $478 that will be given to her tax-free, and then she would pay $22 in taxes versus Mark, who had a qualified annuity, which means he didn't pay taxes on any of it. So $390 is what he received, and then the other $110 will be taxable income for him. So this question comes down to, when do you want to pay taxes on your income? Do you want to pay taxes now or do you want to pay taxes later? If you feel you're going to be in a lower income tax bracket in the future in your retirement, then it might make sense for you to defer to later. If you are someone who wants to have as much tax-free income as you can get in retirement, then maybe you want to pay the taxes now. If you're someone who feels that paying the taxes now is actually, you're going to be in a lower income tax bracket now, you're going to be in a very high income tax bracket later, then you'd want to pay the taxes now when you're in a lower income tax bracket. If you're someone who thinks that the U.S. debt is astronomically out of control and you feel at some point they're probably going to raise taxes and we're already at historical low taxes, then that might mean you would choose to pay the taxes now, having a non-qualified income annuity versus paying the taxes later inside of a qualified income annuity. This is going to be a decision that comes down to you and your own unique retirement situation. So I'll end by going over a couple examples to give you an idea of a couple more ways that you could use an income annuity inside of your retirement plan. So in example number one, you could be a single retiree that's going to use a single premium income annuity, and you're going to use that to cover your living expenses. So all of your needs are covered inside of your annuity, and then your other investments are your ones. That's where you travel. That's where you do all these amazing different things because you know that your annuity covers your needs. In example number two, you could be a married couple who is staggering their annuity start dates so that they can optimize their overall income. Almost the same as someone who is staggering their Social Security, where you start at 62, but I wait till 70. You have your annuities work kind of in the same way, that we're going to use my annuity in the first half, and then we're going to add your annuity so that we have a little bit more income, and we have a little bit more protection. But because I allowed mine to wait additional years, that allows my payment to be much higher. And because we had your annuity early on, we are then able to forego using my annuity. And it may work in a way that allows us to allow our investments to grow. I've seen people where they use annuities where we're in a recession, so I don't want to take money out of my investments because I know that locks in my losses, but I don't have any other income streams, so I have to take money out of my investments. If you have these income annuities on the side, then you're able to say, okay, I'm not going to take money out of my investments. I'm just going to allow my income annuities to pay me this year. And then hopefully next year, the stock market or the real estate market or my business recovers, which then gives me the ability to have not taken the loss, and my company is now able to grow exponentially. And that's the idea. And example number three that we've gone over, if you're a high net worth individual, you could use the income annuity, the QLAC, to be able to set it up to where you hedge against longevity risk. The numbers show that if you're wealthy, you're generally going to live a little bit longer because maybe you're eating healthier, you have less things to stress about, you're taking care of your body. Whatever that looks like, whatever the reasons are, we know that generally people who have a higher net worth generally live a little bit longer. So you may be hedging against that longevity risk. So you have an annuity that you've set up in the future just to make sure that of all of my money and my investments, as I start taking out of it, I have that plan Z, that if I'm alive and it's like 150 years old or something, that I did set up that annuity just in case I live a really long time. In conclusion, you can see that an income annuity has a variety of ways that it could be used in your overall retirement strategy. I'm still big on the idea of diversifying. So you should have multiple streams of income, and there's different benefits, pros, and cons to each of them. Some of them we can focus on growth, where my money's growing exponentially. Some of them we're going to focus on safety. I just want to make sure that I don't go broke in retirement. The income annuity is on the bottom, and where I'm focusing on not going broke in retirement, I don't expect this to grow very much. It locks in a lot of your money, so you have a little bit of liquidity issues. And also, this takes money off the table as far as if you want to have an estate and you want to pass something on to the next generation. All the money that goes inside of an annuity, right? That's it. Whatever the terms of the agreement are, whether it's a single life, a joint life, or a period certain, when the term is up, the insurance company keeps the rest of the money. So that is something that you do want to always keep in mind. If you have any questions when it comes to deciding whether an annuity makes sense in your retirement plan, you can always reach out to me. I'm here to answer questions for you. You can either ask me in the comments or you can reach out to me by going to obsidianwisdom.com, and then you can schedule an appointment and we can have a complimentary discussion where I can answer as many questions as you have in as much of the time that we have together. I'm always thankful for our time together. I just want to let you know I do not take it for granted. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy life.